Let me ask you something. Over the lifetime of your business, how many clients have quietly slipped away without you even noticing? They didn't complain, they didn't cancel, they just disappeared. Well, I have good news. You can get them back, and it's easier than you think. In this video, I'll help you set up an automated re-engagement system inside of SuiteDash. We'll set it up at just the right time, bringing inactive clients back into the fold without lifting a finger. And here's the kicker. If they don't respond, it's not the end of the road. At the end of this video, I'll show you a simple but powerful trick to hook lost clients and get them back engaged without them even realizing it. Be sure to stick around to the end to see how this all fits together. It's a real game changer. All right, here we are in SuiteDash in our custom field management screen. First thing we're going to do to manage this no client left behind is to add a custom field to keep track of the last date that this client interacted with us. Okay, we're just going to call this last activity date. And we're going to set this at the contact level because we need to make sure that this is calculated for every individual contact, right? The type is going to be a date field, and then we'll click add. That's all we need to do to get the custom field created. Now I'm going to show you a few different places around the system where you can keep track of the activity for each client. When you set this up in your system, it might look like this or it might look totally different. I'm doing this as a demonstration so that you can see some real-world examples of how this could be used and what it might look like in practice in a real system. First, we'll take a look at organization settings. This is where we can set automations to trigger for any new contacts that get brought into the system. We can access the organization settings through the flyout menu here in the top right, and then organization settings, the second option down in the far left column. Now, in organization settings, we're going to scroll all the way down to the bottom. There we are. And here we have onboarding automations. This is where we can fire automations for anyone and everyone as they come into our system. So in this case, when a prospect confirms their account and logs into the portal, I'm going to add this automation. We are going to set custom field value, and this will be our last activity date. Now, here's the trick that's really cool in SuiteDash. See this toggle switch, use current date? All we do is toggle that on. And so now what that means is when a new prospect confirms their account and logs in, the last activity date will be set to the current date. We want to do the same thing when a client logs in, just in case they were already upgraded to a client prior to being invited into the portal. So we're going to set last activity date to current date for clients as well. So now we have it for clients as well as prospects. Next up, we're going to take a look at subscription plans. This is another interesting place to use the last activity date. So if a client has a current subscription with you and they make a payment every month, you'll most likely want to consider that payment to be their last activity. So what we'll do is go into any one of our subscriptions here and click the three-dot options menu on the right, go into edit. Then down here you see automation options. There's several different ways that we can set automations here, but what we're interested in for today's purpose is on created/paid. It's important to note that these automations will fire every time that subscription payment posts. When it's created, that means on the first payment, as well as when it's paid in subsequent payments, this will fire on each iteration. So I'll go into configure automations here. We'll add a new one. We're going to set the custom field value. of last activity date and set it to use current date. We save those automations. Great, and now my subscription plan is set up. Next, we'll take a look at appointment types. Consider, for example, a client that hasn't engaged with you in a while, but then they set an appointment with you. You probably want to consider that as your last activity date for the client. So I'll go into this appointment type. We'll hit that three-dot options menu on the right there again. And I'll go into Edit to make these changes. All right, scrolling down now, once we're inside, we see there's some trigger automation scenarios here. So we've got automations when the appointment type is booked, rescheduled, canceled, or completed. I think in this case, it makes most sense to attach the automations to when the appointment type is completed. So that's what I'll do here. We'll click the plus to add a new automation, click Set Custom Field Value. And again, this will be last activity date that we will set to the current date. And save the automations again. Save down here in the bottom left corner just to make sure that everything is finalized there. Now let's talk a little bit about forms. We don't have the direct option to set this value on a kickoff form. But if you think about it, in a kickoff form, that's where you're bringing a new client or a new prospect into your system. When we set up the onboarding automations, we effectively covered the process of setting that date for a new client as they come into the system. So it's really not necessary to be done on a kickoff form. But what about your current clients? So let's take a look at an update form. Here I'm in an update form, and I will go down to the bottom and hit this plus sign where we can trigger automations. Okay, then we'll expand down, configure automations. And again, this is going to be just like everything else that we've set so far. We'll set the custom field value of last activity date, and I'll make that to the current date. We'll save the automations. There we have that, and then I'll save the form. And that's how we work with update forms. Now, the last area of the system that I want to show you is in projects. This is another really interesting use case for the last activity date. So here we're looking at our project generators. This is the mechanism that creates projects dynamically for our clients using the criteria and settings that we specify. So I'm going to edit one of these project generators just so I can demonstrate where we add these automations. All right, if we scroll down past the project descriptions, teammate assignments, task and phase settings, here we are. Trigger automations on project generation, trigger automations on project completion. Now, depending on your particular use case, one of these may make more sense than the other. Maybe you want it on both. In either event, of course, it will look just exactly like it has before. I think for our purposes, it would make more sense to set the last activity date based on the date that the project was requested. So I'll set this for when the project generates. Then I want to add a new automation here. We will add custom field value. And we will set this custom field value of last activity date to the current date. And save. Then I will save again. There we are. And now the project generator has been created. So what that means is when any project generates by way of this project generator, then on the day that that project is generated, the last activity date for the associated client will be updated to the current date. So now we have automation set where we can update the last activity date for the client at key areas throughout the system. Again, your automations may look different than mine. I just made some good suggestions of where you might want to consider putting that last activity update. Now that we have the last activity update taken care of, let's create some automations to respond to it. So first, let's go to the Automations menu and then Auto Templates. This is one of my favorite parts of SuiteDash. So let's create a new auto template. Start creating. And we're going to call this Cold Client Follow-up. Follow-up 1, for example. We'll add an automation. And in this case, I just want to send an email to the target, right? We're going to send an email to the client and say, we miss you, right? Haven't seen you in a while. Hope all is well. Whatever your messaging would be, right? So we're going to send this message to the client. I'll click up here in the top right corner to save the template. And now comes the real magic. Here's where we're going to set the trigger logic for this. So we want this to run for all clients and prospects, right? Doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter what services you have. We're going to change this to if today's date equals, we will say calculated date, and then we're going to select our last activity date plus 90 days. All right. Now let me read this out to you. So this says for all of our clients and all of our prospects, if today's date is 90 days after the last activity date, then run this automation and send the email to the target. Bam, look at that. So now that's entirely automated. As long as they continue interacting with my agency, that last activity date will continue getting updated. And as long as the date gets updated, this automation will not fire. And just like that, you've got a system that guarantees no clients are left behind. But what if they still don't engage? This is where SuiteDash really shines. After 90, 120, or 150 days, you don't just give up on these clients. You recycle them back into your marketing funnel. Think about it. If they've used your service before but now gone cold, they probably don't need convincing of anything, just a fresh reason to pay attention. So instead of treating them like a lost cause, treat them like a new prospect. Drop them back into your lead nurture sequence, where they'll start seeing your latest offers, special deals, and be treated like any other new lead. You've already earned their trust. Now you just need their attention, and that's way easier to earn back. All right, let's add one more automation just to make sure that no client gets left behind. We'll add a new auto template, and we will call this one Cold Client Resell. We're going to add another email to the target. We'll say, we're still here, right? Something like, just a reminder, we are here to help whenever you need us. Some other beautiful message like that. Then we'll add another automation. And this is where the real magic comes in. This is where we're going to add to audience. And we are going to add to the new prospects audience. This is the marketing audience where we will be sending our new feature announcements, new services, special discounts, special bonuses, or anything available to clients or prospects that would help bring someone into the system, right? We're essentially going to treat this person as a brand new lead. So I'll now save this auto template, and then we'll set up the trigger logic. So again, for all clients and prospects, we'll change this value from custom field value to today's date equals. We want to use a calculated date, and this will be the last activity date plus We'll say 120 this time. We did 90 last time. So this is now saying if the client doesn't engage with us in 120 days, if they don't take any of those actions that we have set up that update that last activity date, then this automation will fire and we'll send them this final email and add them to the audience where they will begin receiving our new prospect marketing emails. So there you have it. Our complete client re-engagement system to make sure no one ever gets left behind. If you want to make sure your SuiteDash setup is functioning at peak efficiency, grab my ultimate SuiteDash setup checklist at the link in the description below so you can start your SuiteDash journey with an advantage. And before you go, drop me a comment and let me know, what's your biggest challenge keeping clients engaged? Let's talk about it. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.